For today's Mass, the psalm that the church uses today is Psalm 23, the beautiful psalm that we sang and reflected on today. Psalm 23 was written by King David before he was anointed king. It was a prayer now of thanksgiving to God for being present to him. But there's also another beautiful thing about that psalm. King David now, before he became king, was a shepherd. And so he knew what it was like now to go rescue these sheep that were going off not only to the pastures, but into the woods and bringing them back. And that was the image that he had for God, that God was like a shepherd to us. And he also knew that he was under threat in so many other ways. I mean, you know the story about him and Goliath now. Remember how Saul was trying to overcome him? And so he knew that in dark moments of our life, God was there. And so he wrote that beautiful hymn, that song, that psalm we call it, to remind us that God is ever present. Though I walk through the valley of death, no evil will touch me, for you are at my side. It's a great hymn with a shepherding theme. And Jesus will continue that theme today as he looks out at his people now, and they were hungry, they were starving, he wants to take care of them. But he also is telling his disciples too, his followers, that they needed to rest. They needed now to regroup. He had just sent them out. And he looked at them and he said they were like sheep without a shepherd. Take time for yourself. That's what a good shepherd does. He looks after his people. And one of the greatest ways in which that shepherd continues now is to feed his people in the Eucharist. And so over the next 6 weeks, John's gospel is going to bring us now to a greater awareness of Jesus' presence in that Eucharist that we celebrate, feeding his people, touching his people, bringing us new life, especially when we're going through difficult times, as King David understood, especially when we're facing big challenges. God never said it will be easy, but he said, I'll be with you always through it, and carrying us through whatever we're going through. And so over the next 6 weeks, we are embarking now on a series called The Source. The source comes from the understanding of the word of what we do at Mass. The source and summit, the great prayer of the church. There is nothing greater than what we do here. And that great prayer of the church is what John will help us reflect on. So Father Evan, Father Tamaru, the deacons, over those next 6 weeks, we'll be reflecting together on that great mystery of Jesus' presence to us. And perhaps some of the ways will help us maybe understand why we do what we do, why we are here, but more importantly, who it is that is feeding us in word and sacrament. So there are 3 words that I'd like for you to understand, or just to reflect on in preparation for the next 6 weeks of John's Gospel. One is the word church. Second is the word liturgy. The third word is presider. Church, liturgy, presider. Why the word church? Because in Mass, whenever you hear the word church, it's not referring to institution. It's referring now to the people of God. From the early time of the church, from the early church fathers, in the early writings of the Didache, we hear that word, ecclesia, coming from the word of the people of God, community. We even use that word today. So we're not talking about buildings. We're not talking about institution at prayer time. We're talking about you and me. In fact, the Latin word for this facility is domus ecclesias, the house of the church, the people of God. So when you hear the word church at Mass in the prayers, may your church grow and flourish. May your church, may us, we do it. It's not an institution out there. The second word is liturgy or Mass, which comes from the understanding of the work of the people, the prayer of the people, coming together. In fact, in your pews, I think there are those wonderful inserts now that you'll see. And they're designed, Mariah Tejada, who works with our young families, put that together to help newcomers understand the parts of the Mass, but also just to help us now sometimes. Why we say what we say, we'll use that. Why we're standing and sitting and all the good stuff, posture, all those things. Church, people of God. Liturgy, the prayer of the work, the church, what we do. And presider, whoever sits in that chair, overseeing the work of the church. Bring it all together. And in the name of Christ, bringing now Christ to his people. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a wonderful concept. And that's what we'll be delving into. And so you'll see that information in the bulletin as well. And part of that will also be doing some activities that will help maybe augment that understanding in other activities which we'll hear about later on. So keep that in mind. Church, when we hear the word at Mass, liturgy, what we're doing now, and presider. And so as that church, the people of God, let us stand to profess that faith. I believe in one